Welcome again to Leveraging Your Experience and Relationships to Win More Work. Cole and Neil, the virtual stage is all yours.
Great. Hopefully you can see my screen and see the opening slide, Kevin.
Yes, we can.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And thanks everybody for joining us today. Welcome to the SMPS Learning Lab, Leveraging Your Experience and Relationships to Win More Work. My name is Neil Holmes, and I've got Cole McIsaac with me. I'm going to actually turn my camera off so that we save some bandwidth and the slides make it to you in one piece, unfettered, in an unfettered way. As I said, my name is Neil Holmes. I've been working with AEC firms, helping them select and implement ERP systems and CRM applications for the last 30 plus years. I've got Cole McIsaac with me, who is a business development director at HSO, and he's been working with AEC firms for almost as long. To let you know a little bit about our frame of reference, I'll take a minute and tell you about HSO and AEC 360. We're a global organization with more than 2,500 employees. We've been working in the AEC industry for over 15 years, and we're privileged to work with more than 100 AEC firms just like yours. Our AEC 360 CRM platform covers all of the application areas required to bring new work into your firm. This includes the very front end of marketing, which is much of our focus today. And then once the potential prospect is identified, AEC 360 will manage your leads, your opportunities, and all of the activities required to win work. Relationship intelligence has been a big focus of ours, and we've developed a way to help our clients benefit from any of their existing relationships as they look to develop new ones. And by using those tools, AEC 360 maintains an extensive database of your firm's project and employee experience. And that data is used in several areas, including generating documents like proposals to help firms capture new projects. Our software is entirely based on Microsoft Dynamics. And because of this, our clients can use Microsoft's Power Platform. The Power Platform is a no-code, low-code tool that allows our clients to develop their own software according really to the way that they work and unique applications that they'd like to develop. True business intelligence is one of the backbones of Microsoft applications. And these days, Microsoft's investment and development in artificial intelligence means that we can bring that functionality to our clients with AEC 360 as it's being developed by Microsoft. You might have heard of Microsoft's Copilot AI tool. We've embedded that into our software for our clients. So we're one of the top 3 Microsoft partners in the world, and they've honored us with several awards for how we support and service our clients. And we were chosen as Microsoft's Partner of the Year for 2023. When we look to our AEC 360 solution, helping our clients in the marketing side of things, we help our clients identify and win new work in the following area. For marketing, we help firms with event and campaign management, really helping them map out complete customer journeys for their prospects. We maintain an extensive library of the firm's project and employee experience. That history provides them with the qualification profiles so that they can put their best foot forward when they're pursuing new projects. AEC 360 has comprehensive business development functionality to manage each opportunity with things like risk assessments, go, no-go processes, and win-loss analysis. And a big area of focus today is on relationship intelligence. Here, we take advantage of the latest technology with AI-generated insights to benefit from who knows whom in the market. We can get the warmest introductions possible when pursuing new prospects with that type of relationship intelligence. For today's session that we'll run through today, we'll talk about the following. We plan on talking about what we see as some of the biggest challenges in the AEC business development world today, confirming some of the things that you're experiencing at your firms. And then we'll move into the 2 most critical areas and aspects of what makes for a highly successful business development effort. We'll go through each of those 2 aspects in detail, and then we'll take some time to talk about enterprise relationship management and how ERM works in the context of CRM applications. And with that, we should have plenty of time for a good Q&A at the end. So let's get started. Speaking of Q&A, Kevin, if you could start by teeing up a polling question for us. I want to ask a question of each of you. So if we launch that first question, please share with us, what's your firm's greatest source of business development success? So when you think about it and look at what you do to win deals, is it mostly due to your firm's experience, maybe that you've been doing this the longest? Is it the strength of your relationships that you have with your current clients or your teaming partners? Or maybe it's because you offer unique service offerings that just other firms don't. Maybe it's because your pricing is simply better. Maybe you do it more efficiently than other firms. Or maybe it's something entirely different. Maybe there are other reasons that make you successful in winning new work for your firm. So go ahead and please put yourself into one of these categories and answer some of these so we can take a look at what your experience is in the business development world.
Hey, Neil, quick apology there, sir. Sorry, the questions for some reason were inverted. So this is polling question number 1. Sorry about that, gang. That's what is your firm's greatest source of business development success? Sorry about that.
Yes, exactly. Well, then I see some people answering, and actually we're getting a lot of responses now too, Kevin. So it seems like better pricing doesn't always win out. It seems like as we're getting answers coming through, strengths of your relationship, about 70% are saying relationship. Next runner-up looks like your firm's experience, actually. So as we go through final answers, going once, going twice, looks like that's how it's going to end up. So about 68% of you or so say that it's the strength of your relationships that really help drive your greatest source of business development success. The firm's experience actually comes in second, with almost a quarter of you saying that is the element of your success. That fits right in line with what we're going to be talking about today, your experience and your relationships and how that can work to help drive new business into your firm. So we will go forward there. Thank you very much for responding to that. And I will stop sharing that and close that up. Okay, great. So first off, I'd like to talk about what makes business development in the AEC world difficult and what makes it so challenging. So first off, it's always been a really competitive industry. You've got to find ways to differentiate your firm from your peers, and you've got to look for some compelling value proposition so that you can win your share of the bids that you're submitting. And that can be really difficult because a lot of firms look the same on the surface. We've all got similar practice areas or disciplines offering similar services in similar market sectors. So how do you stand out from the crowd? And in a lot of cases, as you say, having better relationships can help differentiate you and give you a leg up, right? I mean, everyone in the AEC industry seems to know each other. Professionals move around from one firm to another. There are a lot of teaming arrangements and joint ventures in place. So everyone kind of knows everyone else. But who do we really know? And how do we put the strongest relationships to work to drive success? That's not easy. So we're going to explore some of that in today's presentation. Another thing that makes business development challenging is that pursuit investments can be significant, up to tens of thousands of dollars or more for competitive new bids. And in many cases, you're taking valuable resources away from billable client work. And even though a lot of firms might have full-time business development resources on staff to help lead some of those pursuits, the reality is that a lot of the work falls onto your busy seller doers. And that can be a real issue for a lot of firms. Then when you look at the industry-wide hit rate, it's pretty low. The total number of projects under contract versus total proposals submitted falls somewhere in that 37 to 44% range. Engineering firms seem to have the highest average hit rate at about 44.2%, and then construction firms have the lowest hit rate at 37.9%. It's not great in either case. So the firm really has to make good decisions about which opportunities to pursue. And then last, in the AEC industry, the ability to articulate your experience and qualifications is critical. And you said that, and that's critical to winning new work, can be one of the biggest challenges. And we're going to explore why this is the case. A lot of firms really don't have a good handle on their own experience. at least not in a way that helps them to win the next project. So those are some of the realities of what we see in the AEC industry and some of the realities that make your job so difficult. And how do we know this? Well, we know it basically because we asked and you told us. This slide shows the results of a survey that we did. We did it recently with AEC firms where we asked them about their single biggest challenge from a business development standpoint. And here you can see the results. So 16% of the respondents said that their greatest challenge was that they had limited visibility of who in their firm knows whom at the prospect or the teaming partner. They don't really know much about existing relationships. 20% of the firms said that their greatest challenge was not knowing everything they needed to about their own experience. And in a lot of cases, they don't have a centralized database of what the firm or their employees have done in the past. So they don't have that information to draw on. 32% said that a low bid-win ratio was their biggest challenge. And you could absolutely argue that that could be a direct result of having limited visibility of your experience and limited visibility of your relationships. Not having a handle on your experience and relationships can have a big impact on that bid-win ratio. And 32% said that high pursuit costs were their biggest challenge in the business development area, which we know is true. It costs a lot to compete. That just makes it more critical that we focus on chasing the right opportunities where we have the right experience and the right relationships to win. We don't want to invest in opportunities where we're just not lined up to compete effectively. So you could say that to get a better bid-win ratio and to make better pursuit investments, it really all comes down to experience and relationships. So to be successful, we need to focus on those two things. And that's what we're going to focus on today. So armed with some of that background, let's segue into our first key for today in terms of unlocking business development success. And that's the role that your firm's experience plays in this process. So let's go to the next polling question, Kevin, if we could. I want to kick off this discussion with that question. And understanding that your firm's experience is critical to winning new work, ask yourself, does your firm have an up-to-date, comprehensive, searchable repository of firm-wide experience and qualifications? So put your firm into one of these three categories. Yes, you've made it a priority at your firm and you've got a process in place that everyone follows. Or no, you really don't have a central repository and searching for your firm's experience can be a painful process. Or maybe there's somewhere in the middle. Maybe you're thinking you've got a central repository, but it's really a struggle for you to keep it up to date and keep it relevant. So let's see how most of you feel about your present situation.
And we've got,
I could imagine that that's where people would end up, Cole. If we look at this, you've got most people are saying, yeah, we have a central place, but it's really a struggle for us to keep this up to date and keep it relevant. So it really draws into question the value of that whole experience repository.
Yeah, about 80% folks have entered their response. If you could take 1 minute, rest of the attendees, and then we'll share the results. All right. Neil, what do you think?
I think that's good. I think it's ending up where we kind of predicted.
Okay, share results.
I'm happy that about 20% of you say that you've got everyone contributing to a central repository and it is a priority for your firm. Most, as I said, about 2/3 are ending up somewhere in the middle. There is a place for it to go, but it's not always up to date. So searching for information from that central repository for your experience, it's questionable whether the value is there or not, whether you're getting everything that's relevant going forward. So, okay, good. Well, thanks for sharing. And if you share those results and go back to our slides. Okay, So the last item I want to lay out to underscore this importance of understanding your firm's experience and qualifications. This is another study, and this was done by Professional Services Marketing Today. When buyers of architectural and engineering services were asked what their top 5 selection criteria were when selecting an AEC firm, the relevant experience of the firm and the expertise of their team came out number 1 and number 2 in terms of the top selection criteria. So when you look at it straight from the mouth of the client or the buyer, highlighting your experience and qualifications when trying to win new work is critical. So if you can't easily communicate your firm's experience and qualifications, you're swimming upstream. It's going to be a struggle. You're going to spend a lot of money chasing projects that you just won't win. So based on what we know your buyers are looking for and what's important to them, let me turn it over to Cole to give us some ideas on what it means to have an experience profile and how do we improve in this.
Excellent. Thank you, Neil, for the background and some of the introduction, and appreciate all the responses from the attendees with some of the polling questions as well. I know we've got a few of those coming up here in just a bit. So as Neil mentioned earlier, this is Cole McIsaac, and looking forward to spending some time in some of the presentation that we have from here moving forward. So as Neil was chatting through, not only does the buyer prioritize experience and qualifications above all else, but in addition to that, many jobs that we see, they're still being awarded based on qualification-based proposals, and it's where our experience and qualifications are front and center. And then after the award's made, oftentimes that's when we're getting into negotiating the actual fees. So with this in mind, it really starts to elevate the ability to communicate our unique experience and qualifications as a top priority when responding to these types of proposals, which that means having a centralized, searchable view of our firm-wide experience should really be mission critical for most firms that are out there. But many firms lack this key capability, and we saw some of that in the polling response that we just worked through. So we're going to explore some of the reasons why here in just a minute. But first, let's drill down on what exactly all of this means. So when we talk about having a complete, searchable, up-to-date repository of our experience and qualifications, what we're talking about is having a full understanding of all the work that we've done for our clients and who did it. So we're talking about having a visibility of broad set of searchable attributes related to our projects. So this can be everything from, what type of project was it? Was it in a specific market or segment? It might be the type of client that we were delivering work for, or maybe specific services we provided. We can always get down even into certifications or specific awards that we may have received. Because in most proposals, we have to highlight the experience of our team, then we're also talking about having the experience and qualifications of the people that we have as well. So these are for the professionals within the firm. So we're talking about items such as their skills and their education, certifications, professional licenses or registrations they may have. And then all the way down to the specific projects that they may have worked on. And it may have been the capacity or the role that they served, specific dates associated with those projects. Last thing we'll toss in there gets even into the firm's digital assets. So if we want to look at where we have specific photography and imagery or other assets. So having the ability to search and mine all of this information, it's a key part of being able to pull together a compelling proposal. So tracking the information, obviously that's going to be incredibly important, but having it in the searchable database that we can mine this in order to find and highlight the experience in a proposal, that's really what's going to be most important to the firm and most important to the marketing team to drive efficiency. So here's a simple example of what an experience database can offer. And it's the ability to go in and kind of like a search engine, we start getting into items that we've outlined. So to the left-hand side, go find me all the projects in our database that are based in Atlanta where our group was the prime contractor on the job. We want to find projects where we provided architectural and design services. We only want it in the higher education market. Maybe we want them to be LEED Gold certified with net fees of at least $1 million. And then identify for me who worked on the project. So pretty detailed set of searching related to projects. To the right-hand side, here's an example associated with employees. So show me all the employees in our firm that have X number of years of experience. They have a specific certification or education. We could search based on skills, awards, similar projects that they may have carried out, similar to what we might be pursuing. And then down into the market sector or bio specific to a skill or specific to a market segment. Once we find those 2 or 3 or maybe 5 projects that are similar based on our search, we can best identify which ones we want to highlight in our proposal response. So we have all of our project experience archived, all of our employee experience and qualifications, they're filled in, they're up to date. So we can get in at any time and we can search those attributes for matches. And that's super helpful from a marketing perspective. But being able to do something with this data, that's what really takes this capability to the next level. So a couple capabilities that come to mind to start to emerge from having this complete view of experience. So first off, we gain the ability to create pursuit teams and projects that have the most relevant and impressive experience to help increase our overall chance of winning. So putting our best foot forward from that perspective. Second is that we can not only search this experience database, but dynamically on the fly, we can create proposal documents such as project cut sheets and employee resumes that highlight the most relevant experience of your firm and of your people. And we've got a couple of examples of those that we see with our clients showing up on the screen now. We still talk to a lot of firms that have their employee resumes and cut sheets as static documents that, hopefully, maybe those get updated once a year. That might be the best case scenario. Other firms have their employees creating multiple static resumes. Then they save them for different purposes. So it can be tough to manage multiple documents tied to specific individuals. But if we take a step back and think, wouldn't it be better, if we could dynamically create these on the fly? And we want to make sure we're highlighting the most relevant and experience and qualifications for the specific and particular pursuit that we're going after at that time. That's what really helps us, to put our best foot forward.
So we talked about this, and why don't more firms have these capabilities? There are some valid reasons that firms struggle with having this complete view of their experience and qualifications, but there are also solutions to this challenge. You see the obvious benefits from it, but the most obvious challenge to seeing all of this is that a lot of firms don't have integrated business management software platforms where there's this single system of record. Instead, a lot of their experience data is scattered across maybe multiple systems. You might have some of this information in your project management system, some of it's in an HR system, some of it's in your CRM system. And in many firms, those systems don't talk to each other. So the data doesn't flow to business development, and it doesn't flow to marketing where it's really needed to produce the kind of documents, up-to-date documents that Cole was showing. That challenge is especially true for firms that are driving their growth through mergers and acquisitions, because they don't often consolidate that experience very easily. Each of the legacy firms or offices retains its own siloed view of its own experience, and you can't look across the organization as effectively as you should be able to. Another key reason for this challenge is that we know it's tough to get people to keep their profiles and resumes up to date. Our professionals are busy, they're focused on other priorities, and getting them to update that information can be a real challenge. So unless you automate as much of that as possible, it just translates into a lot of wasted time trying to hunt down what you've done, where you did it, and who did it, all of that during the proposal process, and it results in not being able to highlight the most relevant experience and qualifications, which leads to lower win rates and higher proposal costs. So not knowing all of that has a huge impact in your organization. So how do you get that 360-degree view of your experience? Well, basically, you've got a few options, and some of these are better than others, but just consider one option is to use a network and file document storage structure and search tools to create a knowledge repository for your firm and make it centralized. So all of your sub-companies, all of your regions, all of your offices, everything has to be together in that full knowledge repository. Another solution is to implement an experience management platform that can integrate with your key firm-wide system solutions to consolidate that data much more easily and make it much more accessible. A third option is to implement an integrated business management platform, CRM, project management, accounting, HR, all of this into a single system where it flows seamlessly across the business. And as I said, some of these options are better than others, but I think the most important thing is to make it a priority for you and everyone in your firm. That means putting a process in place to make sure that the information is up to date, relevant, and like a lot of things, there's a significant cost of not doing anything. And most of you said, yes, we've got a central repository, but it's just not updated the way it should be. People aren't keeping it up to date as a priority for their daily tasks. If you've adopted one of these solutions, whatever solution you have to collect that data together and keep that experience up to date and relevant, we're seeing a lot of firms take advantage of artificial intelligence and a chat GPT-like user experience to make the search process much more easily and much more efficient. So the tools are out there for you to be able to do that. It's just make sure it's centralized and make sure that everyone's buying into the process of keeping all of this up to date as frequently as you can. So after exploring the importance of experience, let's move to our second topic today, which is the importance of key relationships and how do we leverage relationships to find and win more work. And these days, it's commonly referred to as relationship intelligence. And Cole will help to further define that in a minute, but I want you to think about this, and I'll try to define some of it for you now. What if you had real-time visibility of who in your organization knows whom at a prospect or a teaming partner firm? What if you had a handle on who in your firm is communicating with whom out in the marketplace? And also, what if you knew the level of that communication? And then what if you were in tune with exactly who has worked with whom in the past, either as a partner, supplier, or a client, and to what degree they've worked with them? So real-time visibility of who in your organization has known whom as a teaming partner, who's effectively communicating with others and the level of that communication, and who has worked with whom in the past and the degree that they've worked with them. Knowing all of that would be true relationship intelligence. So for that, I've got one more polling question for you. And right now, considering all of that, what would to you be the greatest benefit to your firm of achieving that level of full relationship intelligence and real-time visibility of all of those relationships? If you had real-time visibility of who was communicating with whom, to the degree that they were communicating, who's worked with whom, would it be the benefit of having more context to support better no-go decisions? Do you have the right relationships in place to win all of that work? Would it be having the insight to facilitate better cross-practice selling introductions? So knowing where to go and who to speak to for a good introduction? Or would it be minimizing collisions where multiple people from your firm, maybe from different offices or practice areas, are actually pitching the same client but don't realize it and step on each other? If it's happened to you, then you know that that would be an issue. Or would it be having the ability to put together the best pursuit team possible? Everyone in your organization that's got the strongest relationship with the client or the prospect to influence your ability to win work. So when you consider those as options, just curious, put yourself into one of those categories and tell me what would be the greatest benefit to having all of that relationship insight.
All right, we got 62% submitted. Folks, if you can please take a second. Looks like 3 and 4 are running neck and neck, but give it a few more seconds here. Let some more folks answer this one. A little bit to think about, I think. All right. Okay. We're at 75% answered. Neil, should we share results or give it another?
I think so. I jumped the gun on the first question, not sharing the results soon enough. So let's go ahead and share this, Kevin.
Right.
And I think when you look at that, some of you know where to go for an introduction. And supporting go, no-go decisions, that is effectively maybe a quarter of you feel that. But a third of you think that your firm operating in unison would be one of the biggest benefits. And then also putting together the strongest pursuit team, making sure that if you've got two people who have the strongest relationship, that they're teaming together to go ahead and approach the prospect with a new proposal. So that's great. I thought it was going to end up to be a fairly even mix, kind of like this, as we're seeing, because when you think about it, all of those are valid. The reality of that, all 4 of those capabilities, they're direct benefits of having strong relationships and insights, and they're all keys to finding and winning more work. Our relationships, not only with our clients, but also with our teaming partners and other project stakeholders, are important because they drive the flow of new business opportunities into the firm. It's how we find out about a lot of new upcoming opportunities. And it's those relationships that can always influence the award of that new work. You've got a much higher win rate when you're proposing new work to a client with whom you've got a pre-existing relationship. It's just easier. And it also is less expensive. A lot of times people want to buy from people that they know. And as we teed up in that polling question, understanding who in your organization knows whom in the market can also help enable better cross-practice selling introductions. So you might think, oh, I see Lucy's worked with Sam before on an office remodeling project. I want to bid on Sam's new parking structure, so Lucy can help get me in there. So knowing those relationships in real time will also prevent those marketing collisions at our clients. It's absolutely horrible to find out when you've got another branch office bidding on the same project. It's embarrassing, actually. So it's also important to note that we should be striving to understand our relationships not only with our clients and with our prospective clients, but also know who in your organization is talking to whom at your teaming partners, at different agencies, sub-consultants, really any other industry party that can help influence those decisions. But it's not always easy because relationships and connections, these are complex. They branch out in a lot of different directions. And in most firms, there are lots of people who may know the same person at a client office. You've all heard of the 6 degrees of separation or the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. And this is so true in the AEC industry. And I did a lot of traveling around as a global director, and I worked with AEC firms all over the world. And you do enough travel, they let you into first-class lounges basically anywhere. True story, Cole, when I saw this picture, I didn't tell you I was going to share this, but I was at the American Airlines first-class lounge in LAX early one morning. Place was empty, but I recognized this guy in the picture. He's standing right with me at the breakfast buffet line. And so we're getting food, and I notice he doesn't take any of the breakfast meat. And I had the perfect line. Introducing myself, I should have said, "So, you're not taking the bacon, huh, Kevin?" But I didn't. I just grabbed some hash browns and went on back to my table. But the idea is that you're not that far from the people who you want to meet. There is a connection somewhere. You just have to find it, and you just have to do the reach out and go ahead and get it. The 6 degrees concept, it's really central to how AEC firms should be really going to market with a complete understanding of who knows who in the market, who's connected to whom, who's communicating with whom, and more importantly, I think, who isn't communicating with whom. Knowing that can be invaluable. We call that the Lonely Hearts Club. Because if you're not 100% sure that people in your firm are consistently talking to key clients, you're vulnerable because your competition is definitely trying to talk to them. And the problem for many firms is that they just don't have the ability to see that until it's way too late. By the way, that guy, he's as thin as a rail, Kevin. His pants were falling off him. I felt like saying, hey, dude, you got to be a little bit more footloose with your calories. All the great lines come to me after I'm gone, right? I think it's time to leave this slide. Maybe for some of you, it's not too soon. So historically, people look to CRM systems for helping them manage key relationships. So we wanted to better understand from a firm's perspective, what are the biggest drivers in terms of why they were interested in a CRM system and what capabilities they were looking for. So we worked with Microsoft to conduct a study, and we surveyed AEC firms where we had 9 different firms, and 3 of them had implemented an AEC-specific CRM system. 3 of them were actively implementing a new CRM platform, and 3 of them were looking to make a decision on a new CRM system. And here you can see kind of a brief profile of the firms and the other ERP systems that they use, the systems that store a lot of that other data that we were talking about being used in the business development process, like a lot of that experience data that we were referring to earlier. And the 9 firms, they span small, medium-sized, and larger-sized firms. We surveyed about 750 people across those organizations, including principals, architects, engineers, marketing, business development users, and we asked them 14 questions. And in those 14 questions, we asked them to give us a total score of 1 to 5 and tell us the importance of certain attributes of a CRM system, what they were looking for. And from that, we were able to determine pretty easily what their expectations were regarding what CRM systems would provide and would do for them once they were implemented. And at the top of the list, 86% of the people in the survey said that they wanted better insight into relationships. They wanted their CRM system to maintain and highlight all of those connections between people in other firms, in their firm, in others at the market, in teaming partners. They really wanted to have the CRM system be the cornerstone of all of that insight. 81% said they wanted to have activity and communications reporting from their CRM system. So in addition to knowing who knows whom, they wanted to know who's communicating with whom, who's meeting with whom, what are the activities that they're engaging in. I also want to point out that 70% said they wanted a centralized knowledge base. And the use of that term in this context was defined to mean a centralized database of the firm's clients, projects, people, pursuits, activities. So really a 360-degree view of all of their connections, relationships, and experience. The other 2 things that people wanted out of their CRM system, 75% said they wanted it to be mobile. And 2/3, 67% said they wanted it to be something that was easy for them to contribute to and easy for them to consume information from, which is something that Cole is going to be talking about in a little bit. So what the survey showed us was that understanding the firm's relationships and interaction was what people really wanted from their CRM systems. And I'm going to turn it over to Cole to show us ways to get your CRM systems to fulfill that need and to fulfill that requirement that you have. And Cole?
Perfect. Thank you, Neil. And I look forward to getting into some of the results associated with that survey. I know that's coming up here in just a moment, so we'll see that shortly. But when we take a step back before we get into some of those results, so the challenge that most CRM systems don't enable this very well. So most CRM systems, they're simply a place to track data. So you're populating a database with client and contact details, but aside from a few exceptions, most of this has been done manually where somebody's actually typing in that data. So in many seller doer environments, it's not feasible because seller doers, they're too busy to be entering in this type of information. So there have been a bunch of efforts over the years to try to automate the contribution of contact and activity details into a CRM system, as software vendors have come up with integration into Outlook, hoping that by putting details in Outlook, they can then push that into the firm's CRM database. The challenge with that today, nobody really uses Outlook the way we used to. So, back in the day, we used to create Outlook card files to keep track of all that information, and we're really not using card files today. So with the autofill feature, if I want to send an email to Neil Holmes, I just start a new email, start typing Neil's information, and then all of his information pops into the to box. So with that approach, it creates a problem for getting contact data into CRM. Another challenge, the firm's view of the who knows whom and who's worked with whom, it lives in a lot of different places. So it might be the basics of it in CRM. We talked about the basics inside of Outlook. We have data within project management tools. That's where we're inputting and tracking our time against jobs. So this information that we're looking for, it's in a bunch of different places. So this is where the idea of ERM, or what we'll think of as enterprise relationship management, that's where this technology really comes into play. So these tools, ERM tools, they've been in place within other professional services firms, such as law firms and accounting firms, for a couple of years. But because lawyers are very similar in their unwillingness to enter information into a CRM system, that's where some of these tools kind of came about. So to get around this, these ERM tools, they automate the harvesting and contribution of this data to our CRM system. And they're using some very innovative passive data collection tools that then make the right connections of a contact throughout your firm. So this is important because you only want one contact record created for somebody that you know, but we do want to know who else within my firm is connected to that contact that I'm connected with. So it's not only about establishing those initial relationship connections, but then we want to monitor ongoing communications with the contact. And based on each person's experience and communications with the contact, we can then start to score some of the strength of relationship to help us understand who knows whom based on the relationships in place. So when you combine CRM with the ERM technologies, you get a much more insightful, true 360-degree view of your clients, contacts, and relationships. But again, as of recently, we're seeing more and more adoption of these ERM tools within the AEC space. So now that we've introduced the term ERM, let's broaden that out to talk about the wider context of relationship intelligence. So relationship intelligence, this involves using a series of tools and practices to gain a single centralized view of all of the interactions that the firm has with the contact. So whether that be a contact that's a client today, it could be a prospective client, might be a teaming partner, or maybe even an industry contact. It combines the elements of CRM, ERM, business intelligence, artificial intelligence, to provide deep insights that allow you to take action on these relationships. So from an ERM perspective, it involves capturing contact and relationship data coming from Outlook in the form of emails and appointments and just general activity. We then cross-reference this information with your accounting and project management software in terms of where we've actually worked with these people and other sources. It contributes those contacts to your existing CRM system, where you're able to make the appropriate connections of those relationships throughout your organization to understand who knows whom and who's worked with whom. And then we can take it a step farther with what projects have we done with them. And then we bring together some of the BI and the AI capabilities into the fold. So we use advanced scoring algorithms not only to determine the strength of relationship to your firm, to people within your firm, but also to score your chances of not only winning a particular pursuit, similar to what we talked about earlier. So, but also, just as importantly, we talked about the high pursuit costs of being a challenge. We saw that with some of our polling questions. So, determining where your chances aren't so great so that you can better evaluate which pursuits to chase, or at least minimally to have an opportunity to alter your win strategy and what you're pursuing. So by collecting all this data, we gain some actionable insights to strengthen our relationships. We optimize our deal strategies, all this coming together to help us to win more work. So this next slide, this is a bit more of a visual as to how all of this works, where again, emails and calendar appointments, they're coming in and out of Outlook. So you're using the idea of email signature scraping, which we're going to talk through this piece in more detail in just a second. But we're looking at the person's name and company, title, email, phone number, and so on. So if there's a contact that you say you've emailed maybe 5 times back and forth, and the individual's not in our CRM system, the tool is going to ask us if we want to add them to the database. And I can simply say yes. It will then add the contact, and it's going to make the appropriate connections to all the other individuals within my firm who are actively communicating with this individual. Then it's going to watch the communications and the activities that are ongoing with this contact, and that's when we start applying the scoring algorithms. So as an example, maybe we want to set the scoring up as 1 point for an outbound email, 2 points if we receive a message back. Maybe it's 5 points if we send them an appointment, 10 points if they accept. And we can maybe even say something along the lines of 50 points if we've worked on a project with them. So the scoring methodology, it's configurable to the firm, and it's flexible as to how we want to manage the strength of the communications. But then, based on the scoring, it's going to show you through connections and strength indicators who knows whom, who's communicating, and who may have the strongest relationship. The other nice thing that this technology will do is it helps to keep the data quality up because it's looking at email signatures. This is the most accurate and current representation of a person's contact information. So it can tell us if somebody's email signature has changed and notify you. So an example would be, Cole, you need to take a look at Bob's information. His contact details have changed within his email signature. Then we have the ability to compare what CRM is showing and what we're seeing through signature scraping. And then the tool is going to give us an option to update this data.
Basically automating all of that.
Exactly. Spot on, Neil. So, to that point, we mentioned earlier, I said just a second ago, I talked about the email signature scraping. And this is an incredibly important part of this overall story. So we all know that it's hard, as we mentioned earlier, to get engineers, architects, other SMEs to enter data into a system. So the important question becomes, if we're not going to input it manually, where do we collect this contact and relationship data if we can't get them to enter this into the system for us? So that's where the notion of signature scraping really comes into play. So when we ask ourselves the question of where is the most accurate, up-to-date data, is it within an email signature? Is it CRM? Is it within LinkedIn or social media? What we figured out is it's pretty straightforward. It's in the person's email signature block. So I know as an individual, on my end, I always keep my title, phone number, and other details in my email signature up to date. And that gives my clients and potential clients the ability to get in touch with me. So the email signature scraping technology that helps us to get around these problems because we're passively scraping a contact's data from their email signature as they come through. We're then enriching that data. We're building the right connections to other related entities, which we've explained just a minute ago. So it's helping to pull all of that data together. So let's look at a real world case study. So Neil had kicked off the idea of this survey just a little while ago. So this is going to talk through the impact of ERM, and it's going to show us how this technology really works. So as introduced from a few slides back, this is a firm that we worked with where we were able to collect some before and after data points for a subset of their key seller doer employees. So what we're looking at here, it's a snapshot of the number of active contacts and activities that each of their employees had created in their previous CRM system. And again, in this model, so that previous system, these seller doers, they were required to either manually enter the contact info directly into CRM, or maybe they created an Outlook card file, which then the CRM system would allow to push into the database. So as you can see to the right-hand side, we see the number of contacts based on the different employees that we were monitoring. Now we've updated our slide. It's similar looking graph, but updated information. So here's what happens when we look at the after picture for this same set of employees. This is the picture after they started harvesting their contacts by automatically scraping their email signatures. And it turned out that, as we suspected, they actually had way more active contacts and there was way more activity going on in their system, or more than what their system was showing, because they just weren't entering this data into the system. They didn't have the technology in place that would allow them to automatically capture this data. So this next slide does a great job of looking at the comparison of these individuals, the before and after of these employees, with some of the improvements. And we see everything from 50% in here, 70, 300. We even have one individual that had close to 500% increase in the contacts and relationships. And when we think about the benefits of pulling all this data in, they're pretty simple, and we see them to that right-hand side. So we have a complete centralized view of contacts. I have the ability to get in and see who knows whom and who's talking to whom. We talked about building optimal pursuit teams earlier, and the idea of better cross-practice and office selling, helping to lessen the collisions based on communications with our client. And then we have our relationship and the pursuit strength. So these are all items that, the attendees were able to click in and identify some of the key benefits that they were looking for from the business development side.
I could see how this would be essential for an AEC firm, but absolutely essential for a law firm, and why they probably adopted this practice, at least initially, because of that, having fewer collisions and all, knowing who in their organization is already working with a client or a potential client might actually be a requirement for them. So automating it makes a lot of sense.
Yep. So you're spot on there, Neil. And we're, as the market continues to get more and more competitive within the AEC space, we've seen a higher emphasis on knowing who knows whom and how we can leverage these relationships. And I think that's been this major uptick in the need for some of this technology in the industry that we've seen over the last year to 2 years. So in line with this, what we've brought up now, Neil, so here's an example of this contact and relationship data. This is living directly inside of CRM as an example. So this is a client record where in the center section, we can see the key contacts and count of relationships, and then the scoring based on the level of communication. So I've selected an area where we're looking at Layla as a key contact within Incura Consulting. And I can see the 5 relationships that are in place. So these are 5 people in my firm connected to Layla, everywhere from Harry down to Roxanne and then to Gary. And I can also see a column where I see the relationship strength, front and center, based on that level of communications for emails and appointments and phone calls that are taking place. Again, it's passively collected behind the scenes, and we talked about this earlier, but super helpful to see who knows whom and that strength of relationship directly inside of the system. So again, tying all this back together to the earlier polling question. So there are significant benefits to be had through relationship intelligence. So we can start making, much better go, no-go decisions based on knowing if we have the right relationships in place and how strong those relationships are. We can facilitate better cross-practice selling introductions by knowing who in the firm knows a client and be able to ask for an introduction from that individual. We can minimize the collisions, as we had talked through in the previous polling slide. So who else in the firm is communicating with the client and how are they communicating? And then we can put together stronger pursuit teams based on, putting forward the people with the best client relationships and making sure they're front and center in a specific pursuit that we're going after.
I think that ended up being one of the higher responses to the polling question, was making sure that if we've got a couple of people that have the strongest relationships, let's put them as the leads in this pursuit so that we maximize our chances of winning this next project. So let me summarize this for today's presentation. To bring it all together, your firm's experience and your relationships, they're the two most important keys to business development success. People buy from people that they know and from people that they know can do the job. So when it comes to your experience, if you don't have one today, invest in creating a central repository of your firm's experience and qualifications. Many of you said that you have one, but you've got to find ways to internalize a process to keep that data up to date and keep it relevant. Get everyone in your organization to understand this is part of their job. It's not, a nice to have or, hey, if you have time kind of an activity. It's imperative. It's the key to your firm's success. And then when it comes to relationships, find better ways to understand who knows whom across the board. Automating some of that is great. Everyone in your organization knows someone who will help you get the next project. So look for tools, methods, and other ways to capture insights and engage in this idea of enterprise relationship management, including looking at combined ERM and CRM solutions that bring this all together, or better ways to mine from your CRM system and email communication systems that you have in place so you get this kind of relationship intelligence. All of that, your experience, your relationships, will put your firm in a position to, put it simply, win more business. And with that, I thought we would have a couple of minutes left over for Q&A, so we'll open it up to a couple of questions, and I think Yasa might be reading them off the chat window for us.
Neil, we got lucky right off the bat here. We were perfect timing.
We do have a couple of questions. The first one, you showed resumes and project sheets that can be exported from the CRM. What formats can the project sheets and resumes be generated in?
So Neil, I can take that one from my end. So we saw some of those examples. So when we look at the documents generated, we have the ability to create these documents in Word, PDF, as well as Adobe InDesign. So more and more of our clients are heading to InDesign for kind of that next level flexibility when it comes to creating those documents.
Okay. Another question is, does this system sync with MailChimp or Constant Contact or any other third-party services? I think we're talking about relationship harvesting here.
Yep, so we do have the ability to integrate with various e-marketing solutions. So we see MailChimp and Constant Contact quite a bit. So a lot of times we're harvesting contacts and auto building relationships, and that's all in our CRM database. We have the ability to push that data up to e-marketing systems to allow for outbound communications. And then we pull back some of the marketing analytics as well. So if we want to see some of the opens and clicks and unsubscribes and any other analytics we can get our hands on, that's all incredibly valuable data to support this contact and relationship view for the individuals we're working with. All
right. Well, it's 1 o'clock. Whatever questions we didn't answer, we can follow up directly.
Actually, I said it's exactly 1 o'clock. I just saw one more come into the Q&A box. We want to answer that and wrap up. Go ahead.
We are already using a CRM. Can the information in our existing CRM be transferred over to your CRM?
Yes, absolutely. So majority of our clients are running some form of a CRM system today. So part of our implementation with HSO and AEC 360 is migrating the data that's being tracked today into Dynamics and AEC 360. So absolutely, that's something that can be migrated over.
Well, all right, then we got it right down to the wire. Perfectly timed today, Neil, Cole, and Yasa. Thank you. So, Cole and Neil, any final thoughts? Any final one takeaway you want to share with our attendees today before we wrap up today's program?
From my end, I appreciate everybody joining in and appreciate the polling responses. So this has been a huge focus that we've seen with our client base and a growing need around relationship intelligence, like we said, within this competitive market. So hope to be in touch with everybody soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
All right, then. Well, on behalf of SMPS, I want to say thank you to our presenters, Cole McIsaac and Neil Holmes, and of course to Yasa as well for helping out with today's program. And thank you to all of today's participants. This program has ended. You may now disconnect. Have a great day, everybody.